Light, shadow and reflection. The sun is the biggest source of light on our earth during the daytime. We use sunlight in different ways. We use bright sunlight to dry paper or to generate solar power. When the sun's light is too bright for our eyes, we wear sunglasses or use an umbrella. When we want to block the sunlight while screening a film, we use dark curtains on the window. Transparent, translucent and opaque. We can see through the materials from which window panes and spectacles are made. These materials allow almost all of the light to pass through or called transparent. Glass and water are transparent. In case of transparent objects, very little light is reflected back. This means that only a small path of light is thrown back when it meets the surface. Between two mediums, most of the light passes through the surface. Some materials either absorb or reflect light. Light does not pass through them. They create shadows. These materials are called opaque. Most of the colored objects we see are opaque because they reflect the color we see and absorb the rest of the light. The clothes we wear and the fruits eat are opaque. An apple is opaque and reflects the red color. Most things around us are made of opaque materials. A sweater is opaque. Some materials do not allow all light to pass through them. These materials are called translucent. Tracing paper is translucent. So, if fine cloth and ground glass, in case of translucent object, some light is reflected, some absorbed and some scattered. Translucent materials may be tinted or colorless. Reflection is the bending back or returning back of all or a part of light when it meets a surface. What is light? Light is a form of energy that lets us see things. It makes things visible. Light falls on objects and reflects their images into our eyes. We need light as well as our eyes in order to see things. Where does light come from? Some objects emit light. They are called sources of light. These objects help us to see things. The sun is the biggest source of light, and that is why we can see things clearly during the daylight hours. The sun is a natural source of light, and so is fire. Some sources of light, such as an electrical bulb, a tube light, or an LED, are artificial source of light. All objects, natural or artificial, which produce light of their own are called luminous objects. Objects that do not produce light on their own are called non-luminous objects. How does light travel? Light travels in straight lines. A thin line of light is called a ray of light. Usually, many rays travel together in an organized way. These make up a beam of light. Rays in a beam of light may travel parallel to each other, or they may spread outward. However, the ray itself always travels along a straight line. This property of light is called the rectilinear propagation of light. The headlight of a car gives out a beam of a light. A torch shines a beam of a light. A beam of sunlight shines through the clouds. In a cinema hall, we can see a projector beaming the movie on a screen. We can see that these beams of light travel in straight lines. Reflection and reflecting surfaces. As we had read earlier, reflection is the returning back or bouncing back of all or a part of a beam of a light when it meets a surface. It is the sudden change in the direction of a beam of a light when it hits a reflective surface. The ray that falls on the surface is called the incident ray. The ray that bounces off the surface after changing direction is called the reflected ray. What is a reflective surface? A reflective surface is a surface that reflects all or almost all of the rays falling on it. Most of the highly polished metal surfaces are reflective, but these are not the only ones. Have you observed the sunset by the seaside and watched its reflection on water? We all have read the story of a greedy dog with the bone who saw his reflection in the water and thought it was another dog. He barked at the dog in the water and dropped his own bone into the water. Water reflects and still water reflects better. Mirrors are made of glass with shiny metal coated at the back. This process is called silvering. Mirrors are the most common and effective reflecting surfaces. When the surface is very smooth, such as the surface of the mirror or polished metal, the incident rays from a beam of light and are all reflected in the same direction. They form a sharp image. We see sharp images in a mirror because all the reflected rays move in the same organized direction. This is called smooth reflection. When the incident rays fall on a rough reflected surface such as water surface with ripples or ground glass, the reflected rays travel at different angles depending on the angle of the surface on which they fall. Therefore, the image is not sharp. This is known as a diffused reflection. Images formed by rays reflected from a mirror have yet another interesting quality. They are laterally inverted. This means that the left side of an image appears at the right side in the mirror and the right side appears at the left. How fast does a light travel? Light travels faster than sound. That is why we see the lightning first and then hear thunder. We also see fireworks light up the sky before we hear the bang. Light travels at a constant speed of 299,792.458 km per second in a vacuum. At present, it is considered the fastest speed in the universe. The speed of light in a vacuum is known to be a universal constant. Therefore, since 1983, it has been used as the measure of 1 meter. 1 meter is the length traveled by light in 1 by 299,792,458 parts of a second. Can you blink your eyes in the time? How are shadows formed? We read earlier that opaque objects block light. They form dark shadows because they do not allow light to pass through them. Translucent objects block light partially, so they form shadows too. But these are faint. A shadow is a dark shape that is formed on a surface when an object blocks a source of light. If you shine a torch on a tree at night, will the tree form a shadow? A shadow needs a surface. The shadow of the tree will not appear in the sky. The tree may form a shadow on the wall behind it or on the ground. Therefore, in order to form a shadow, we need a source of light, an opaque object, a surface for the shadow to form on. Properties of shadows. Opaque objects block light and form shadows. The shape of the shadow depends on the shape of the object. A shadow only shows the outline shape of the object. The shadows formed on the opposite side of the light source. When the light source is at an angle and not overhead, the shadow is longer. We see this difference in the length of the shadow when we stand in the sun in the morning, at noon, and at sunset. Shadows are always black. They do not show in color of the object. Shadows are created only if there is a light source and a surface for the shadow to form. Shadows and images. We know that light travels in straight lines. When light is blocked or absorbed by an opaque object, it forms a shadow. When the light reflected by an object reaches our eyes, it forms an image. In our eyes, the image is formed upside down, but our brain reads the image correctly. So we see the image as it is in the real life. Mirrors also reflect light and form images, but these images are erect. The pinhole camera. A pinhole camera is a device that forms an image of an object on a screen. Pinhole photography is very simple idea. The camera is simply a darkened container with small hole in it. A film or a photographic paper is then inserted inside it. When the shutter is removed from the small hole, light enters and creates an inverted image on the film. The pinhole is based on the principle that light travels in straight lines to create an image. Eclipse. A total or partial eclipse is the shutting off light from a celestial body as it passes behind another celestial body. An eclipse occurs when the sun, moon and earth are in straight line. Solar eclipse. When the sun, moon and earth are in straight line and the moon is in the middle, the shadow of the moon falls on the earth and blocks the sun in the part of the earth on which the shadow falls. The sun can be seen, and we call this a solar eclipse. Solar eclipse occur a new moon day. Large shadows have two regions. The region of the full shadow is called the umbra, and this region has a total eclipse. The region surrounding it is called the penumbra. The penumbra is the half shadow, and this region has a partial eclipse. Lunar eclipse. When the earth, sun and moon come in a straight line and the earth is in the middle, the shadow of the earth falls on the moon. This is called a lunar eclipse, and it occurs on a full moon night. If moon is in the umbra region, we see a total eclipse. If it is in the penumbra region, we see a partial eclipse. We often see the shadow moving across the moon. Hope you learned about light, shadows and reflection. I am happy to give this information to you. Thank you.